bill?
That's another one, dude.
Why is it you don't want to answer any of my questions? And your only defense is that's another one. It's a very basic question.
Well, the thing is, man, this calls for Mark. And that call yesterday was absolutely disgraceful, sir.
Okay.
And that's what's the problem with Democratic base.
Okay, so I don't know what call you're talking about, but let's try to focus on you and me right now. You said you're a Trump supporter, so let's try to have a conversation. What do you like about what Donald Trump has done over the course of the last 6 or 7 months, Stephen?
I like that he got rid of EV mandate.
He got rid of what? I'm sorry?
The EV mandate.
Okay, you don't have. Why are you yelling? Can we have a conversation without you yelling?
Sir, can you hear me? Do I need to speak louder?
No, I heard what you said, but why are you yelling? Can we have a civil conversation?
You did it. You said, excuse me, what'd you say? So I spoke a little louder.
Okay, well, thank you. You don't have to scream. Let me ask you a question, Stephen. Do you have any kids?
No.
You don't. So let's just say if you had a daughter, Stephen, would you want to vote for somebody who admittedly went into teenage girls' locker rooms to look at teenagers in a sexual manner? Do you think that's appropriate? And do you think that's someone who should be the president of the United States or a 34 count felon?
In a sexual manner?
He said that on the Howard Stern show. Did you not listen to the interview, sir? Because I did, and we played it on the show.
Was it sexually?
Yeah.
How was it sexual, sir?
Yep. He joked about it, and he talked about it, and he bragged about the fact that
it's sexual.
Okay, I'm sure.
I could look at grown men and make a joke.
Okay. So there are women in that were teenagers in that locker room that have spoken out on it and said they were extremely uncomfortable and that they did not give him permission to do that when they were undressing. Do you think that's a joke?
You know what, sir? You say the same thing over and over.
No. Answer the question. Answer the question. Don't dodge it.
You've already asked it.
You don't want to answer the question. I see. It's interesting. Okay, let's go with some other stuff then, Stephen. Are you comfortable with 15 million people losing their Medicaid coverage in the big and beautiful bill?
That's another one, dude.
Why is it you don't want to answer any of my questions? And your only defense is that's another one. It's a very basic question. He just passed the big and beautiful bill. Answer the question. Otherwise, you are a coward.
You don't know how to work. You work 2 hours a day.
Okay, so now you're going to go to ad hominem attacks and personal insults because you can't answer my question. First of all, you're the guy who listens to this show, and you're the guy who used your little Trump fingers, even though you're not capable of answering a question. You're the person who called into this show. I don't work 2 hours a day. You have no idea how a radio show works and how much work goes into it. So, Stephen, we'll try this one more time. And I haven't called you any names yet, but you've called me names and you haven't answered any of my questions. I've asked you a couple, and your only defense is, oh, is that your go-to? So I've asked you 2 questions. You've dodged them. I'll ask you another one. Do you think those who beat police officers on January 6th are hostages and patriots?
Again.
Bye-bye. Have a nice day. You're a waste of my time. You won't answer any of my questions because you are a very, as Trump would say, low IQ person. If you're going to call in and say you're a Trump supporter, then answer my questions. If you're not going to answer my questions, then don't call into the show. All you did in that entire conversation was ad hominem attacks. You started screaming at me for no reason, and you couldn't defend any of Donald Trump's behaviors and actions as president. And your only go-to was, again, you always go to that. Why don't you answer the question? I'll respond by saying, again, you Trump supporters, when I pin you in a corner and I ask you to defend the indefensible and you can't do it, so then you start attacking me. Thank you, Stephen, for proving my point that many of you are very ill-informed and uneducated.
Hey, good afternoon, Brian. I hope you had a good weekend. I'm tuning in here. I just don't understand why you're making race an issue, accusing Trump of being a racist. He's not. I mean,
sure.
How is it racist by him cracking down on these major cities? I don't understand.
Sure, I'll answer you, my friend. So first of all, these cities that he has talked about, they all happen to have black mayors. So let me ask you a question then. Why is it that he'd go into D.C. and Chicago when per capita the crime rates are lower than they are in many other cities across the country that have white Republican mayors and white Republican governors? Why is that, sir?
Well, quite frankly, the culture of the inner cities that are ran in Chicago, D.C.
The culture?
Yeah, the culture.
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, the black culture.
Oh, okay.
The
black culture. Okay, so let me ask you a question. Was it black culture on January 6th in D.C.? Was that black culture, sir? What would you call that?
patriotism.
No, patriotism. Oh, okay, so it's black culture when it's crime, but if you beat police officers on January 6th, that's patriotism. Is that what you're saying, sir? Is that what you're saying? Because you sound like
and the black
okay. Well, then you're an idiot.
Ashley
Then
Babbitt.
you're an idiot. Then you're an idiot. Okay, keep him on. Don't hang up on him. Ashley Babbitt was an idiot. She went in on January 6th, broke the law. She deserved it. And for you to call people who beat police officers patriots makes you probably a white supremacist. So my question for you, sir, is what time is your Klan rally tonight?
I'm
You
not
imbecile.
part of the KKK.
Let me ask you. Yeah, you are the KKK. Let me ask you another question, you imbecile racist turd. Let me ask you another question. Since you think beating police officers on January 6th makes you a patriot, what would you say about Black Lives Matter protesters that beat police officers? What would you say about them? Are they patriots too?
They're savages.
Okay, so you're a savage if you're black and you beat a cop, but if you're a white person and you beat a cop on January 6th, you're a patriot. Is that your take, sir?
No, it's not. I don't
No,
condone.
yes, it is. That's exactly what you said. You said if you beat a cop on January 6th, you're a patriot. And I just asked you, what if you beat a cop during Black Lives Matter protests and you called them savages? I caught you because you're a racist. Why don't you at least own it and admit that you're a racist, you white supremacist?
Everybody.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Not everybody beat a cop, but they're
I didn't ask you about everybody, you stupid idiot. Answer my question. I'm going to ask it one more time, you white supremacist doofus moron, you. I didn't say everybody, you jackass. Answer my question. If you beat a cop on January 6th, we know people were charged and convicted and we've all saw the video. If you beat a cop on January 6th, does that make you a patriot? Because that's what you said.
I mean, you can be a patriot and a criminal at the same time.
What would you call somebody? What would you call somebody who beats a police officer?
Not a very good guy.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you now for a fourth time and answer the question, you white supremacist idiot. If you beat a cop on January 6th, what does that make you?
It makes you a criminal.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Why was that so hard for you to admit? So here's my question for you, sir. When I asked you that question and you immediately called them a patriot, but yet when I ask you the same question about a Black Lives Matter protest, you call them animals. Why is that, sir?
Because they burn down buildings or looting.
And what did they do on January 6th? What did they do on January 6th? By the way, I don't condone that behavior. They're criminals as well. Yes, they did. They destruction of property. Are you kidding me? Defecating on Nancy Pelosi's desk, breaking windows. What the hell are you talking? She deserves it. She deserves it. Yeah. So you think it's okay if you disagree with a politician, you're totally okay with any everyday citizen walking in there and taking a crap on somebody's desk. Sir, you are not a serious person. You are Donald Trump's base. You are a white supremacist turd is what you are. And I hope you get deported to Gaza. And I mean that, sir. You are a racist idiot.
Why are you raising your voice?
Yeah. Okay. I'm raising my voice because you're a moron. That's why. And you're wasting my airtime. You are your typical Donald Trump supporter. We caught you. Proof that you are a racist. Apparently, if you beat a cop at a Black Lives Matter protest, you're an animal and a criminal. But yet, when I ask you that question about January 6th and people who beat cops, you're a patriot. That makes you a white supremacist, racist piece of garbage. That's what you are. So where are you getting that information from? And
this is your argument every time.
Tell me. No. Let's go.
According to CNN, since Trump has deployed the National Guard in D.C., it said robberies and car break-ins were down by over 40%, and other crimes were down significantly, like upwards of 20%. Is that not significant?
You're saying so you're defending calling in the National Guard because you're saying carjackings are way down. Is that your defense for calling in the National Guard?
Among other things, theft, auto thefts, and other types of thefts and robberies are all down by a significant amount in just about a week.
So does that mean not significant? So does that mean we should call in the National Guard to every city in this country?
Well, no, I'm not saying every single city, but at a certain point, you have to recognize that a lot of these cities are having real serious problems, and yes, the majority of them are ran by Democrats, and they're
not
really
true.
bad. Like
That's not true.
Yes, it is.
No, it's
yes,
not. The majority of them are not run by Democrats. That is factually
yes,
inaccurate, and I don't know where. No, I mean you're saying something
the
that's not
cities
true.
themselves are. Yes.
Okay. Oh, the cities themselves are. Okay, they're all run by Democrats. All right, so it's a Democrat problem.
Well, do you disagree with that?
No, I just think it's ridiculous what you're saying. And here's the difference between
well,
you and
am
me.
I wrong?
I don't care whether it's a Republican or a Democrat. Okay, if Donald Trump really cared about the most crime, well, no. This is what you don't care about. The most crime in the most dangerous cities where Donald Trump has not deployed the National Guard or not even threatened to call it the National Guard. Why is he only deploying them to cities run by? You keep saying yet. Why wouldn't he do? Why wouldn't that be the first thing that he would do? If this really was about crime, then why wouldn't he deploy the National Guard to the most dangerous cities in the country? Now, I know the answer to that. Why don't you answer the question? And don't say, David, with respect, don't say, well, maybe they will do it. Why do you think he has not called out the National Guard to the most dangerous cities in the country if he claims this is about crime?
Well, I'll explain. Because Washington, D.C. is, the capital of our country, and it's completely absurd with how dangerous our own capital is.
Why you're not answering? I didn't ask you how.
I just did.
You said Washington D.C. is absurd. Okay, that's not answering my question. I'm going to ask it again. Washington D.C. is not even top 10 when it comes to the most crime, particularly violent crime. I'm asking you a very specific question. And by the way, he's threatened to deploy troops to Chicago. Also not top 10.
Fantastic.
He's threatened. You say fantastic, but you won't answer my question. I'm going to ask it again. Why has he not threatened to deploy the troops to any of the top 10 most dangerous cities in this country? Please answer the question.
Well, I told you, because he's doing it in D.C. first, because that's the capital of this country, and he wants to get
that's the capital. Because that's the capital of the country. That's your excuse why he did it in D.C. first. So why is he doing it in Chicago second? So why is he doing it in Chicago? What's your excuse to why he's deploying troops in Chicago if they're not top 10 when it comes to violent crime? What's your excuse on Chicago?
Well, have you seen the murder rate in Chicago? Do you have any idea how bad it is there? I have family in Chicago, and they tell me how dangerous it is.
Just because your family tells you how dangerous it is doesn't mean it's top 10 most dangerous cities in the country, which it's not.
I didn't say it was
okay,
top 10.
So answer my question. Why is he threatening to deploy troops to Chicago and Baltimore when they are not top 10 most dangerous cities in the country? I keep asking the same question over again. You say, well, because DC is the capital. Pathetic excuse. So give me an excuse to why you think.
How's that a pathetic excuse?
Because we're talking about crime. And if we're talking about crime.
I just told you that area is very high in crime, and it's the capital of our country. Okay, and he wants to handle it in our capital.
Gotcha.
Don't you want to see?
Then why did he call?
Then why did he?
I want to see every city safe, sir, not just DC. But if that's the case, and you're making, and that's what I think it is, an excuse, then what is your excuse for him wanting to deploy troops to Chicago and Baltimore when they are not even close to top 10 per capita when it comes to murder rates and violent crime? What is your excuse for that?
It's how is it an excuse? I just told you these areas. So it has to be the first one, and then the second one, and then the fourth and the seventh.
So you think it's fair? No. They're not even close to top 10 most dangerous. If this is about crime, and you think he cares about that. By the way, he pardoned a bunch of January 6th insurrectionists in D.C. Last I checked, that was the Capitol, and he called them patriots and hostages. So please spare me the BS about how he cares about the Capitol in D.C. and about being safe, when on January 6th, he didn't call in the National Guard, and he sat on his ass for 5 hours.
Well, he tried to.
He didn't. There is zero. Nope. There is zero evidence. Once again, you are lying. There is zero evidence.
I'm not lying.
Oh, then where is your evidence that he actually tried to call in the National Guard? Because the commission, the January 6th commission, interviewed basically everybody under oath, and not one person under oath says Donald Trump asked to call in the National Guard. So where are you getting that information from? And
this is your argument every time.
Tell me. No. Let's go.
Every time somebody talks about how dangerous these cities are, you talk
about
January 6th.
Because January 6th.
Completely ridiculous.
No, it's not ridiculous. You think what happened on January 6th is ridiculous? You keep claiming that the reason why Donald Trump called in the National Guard is because it's our capital. So if that's your opinion, and we need to protect D.C. because it's our capital.
Well, why do you think he brought him into D.C.?
Hold on. If that's your opinion, then please answer my question. And by the way, correcting the record for you again, there is no evidence that Donald Trump wanted to call in the National Guard, there were multiple people that testified under oath that he never asked for that, and he had the authority to do it. He sat in his ass for 5 hours. What you're saying is not true. I want to be very clear on that. You have zero evidence to back up what you just said. Now, you asked me a question, David. Why do you think he's doing it in Washington, D.C.? I think there are multiple reasons.
Okay.
I think the first reason is his ego. He wants to play tough guy and appeal to his base. Number two, I do think that the fact that there is a black mayor and Democrats in charge there, and the fact that there is a black mayor in charge, just like there's a black mayor in charge of Chicago, just like there's a black mayor in charge of Baltimore, is not a coincidence. I also do think race is involved. A lot of homeless people, a lot of minorities. I think there are multiple reasons why he is doing this, and I think it's a very slippery slope and a dangerous path. So don't give me the excuse that the reason why
you just think it's about race, like even though there's no real.
I just said
is.
Okay, so let's go with that then. What does Baltimore, Chicago, and DC all have in common? Those are the three.
Very high murder rates.
Not top 10. What do you consider?
I didn't
high?
say they were top 10.
Okay, so they're not. So none of those three cities are top 10 or even close to that. By the way, I think Chicago's like 98th of the most dangerous cities in the country. So I'm asking you again, what do they all have in common? Please answer the question.
I just told you they all have very high murder rates.
They're all dangerous.
Are you
okay.
going to tell me Chicago's not dangerous? Are you going to say that to me?
Again, they're 98th in the country. So my answer would be, David, my answer.
Can you answer this one question?
I'm going to, okay, but hold on. Let me answer
do you think Chicago's a safe city?
Do I think Chicago's a safe city? So if you ask a question like that, and someone says, no, it's not necessarily a safe city. So cities, I don't think North Vegas is safe. I don't think there are plenty of parts of Las Vegas that are safe. Does that mean I think the National Guard should be called in? No. So your question is ridiculous. Okay.
And you don't think it's safe, or you do? I just want to know. Yes
I think
Chicago is a safe city.
I think there are portions of large cities across the country that are not safe. You could name any city, and I can give you. There are bad neighborhoods in every city that are not safe. That doesn't mean the National Guard should be called in.
But they were never this bad. They were never this bad. Chicago was not this bad 20 years ago. It's really, really bad. It's not as bad as it was 5 years ago. But
what about
it's still
Baltimore?
Comically high.
What about Baltimore?
Yeah,
really?
It's all of these. Yes.
Really?
Do you not agree?
No, I don't agree. Baltimore murder rate is down 62%. You have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, relative to what? Relative to its very high murder rate. Just because it's down doesn't mean that it's low. It just means it's down, but it's still a high number.
Baltimore is not one of the top 20 cities most dangerous. And again, the murder rate is down 62%. You're making excuses.
But that doesn't mean that it's safe.
Okay, so in your opinion, if David doesn't think a city is quote unquote safe, then that is his defense for calling in the National Guard. David, do you realize how ridiculous you sound?
At some point, you have to handle these problems, which these cities have not handled. They won't do it. Either they don't have the political inclination to do it, or they don't want to, or they don't have the money or funding.
And your idea of handling the problem is pick and choose three cities that aren't even top 50 in the most dangerous cities in the country that all happen to have Democrat black mayors. And your defense is, I don't think it's safe there. David, you're ridiculous.
Your argument is it's because the mayors are black. That's your argument.
Then what's your argument to why he picked these three cities over any of the top 25 most dangerous cities in the country? What is your excuse?
Because these cities are enormous, and they've become known for how bad and how dangerous they are.
Because these cities are enormous. I repeat once again, they are not even.
Is Chicago is it not a big city with a very high murder rate? Is that not true?
Again, I will repeat myself. There are plenty of other cities per capita that are far more dangerous than the cities that we are talking about, including Jackson, Mississippi, Memphis, Tennessee, St. Louis, Missouri. Yeah. There are plenty of cities out there that have high murder rates per capita, and Chicago and DC and Baltimore aren't even top 10. And he hasn't called out.
If he sent the National Guard to the number one city with the highest homicide rate, would you agree with that or no?
If he, while I wouldn't agree with it, I wouldn't be against it as much. Now, I don't think we should be calling in the National Guard unless local law enforcement requested or asked for it. Local law enforcement in DC, in Baltimore, and Chicago have not asked for it. Example, there were some Black Lives Matter protests where the National Guard was called in. It's because local law enforcement said it was out of control and they needed help. It was something called an emergency. There's no emergency in Chicago. There's no emergency in DC, and there's no emergency in Baltimore. But just because David thinks it's not safe there, You're defending calling in the National Guard, which is, again, ridiculous, David. It's ridiculous.
Can I say real quick? Real quick, am I still there?
Go ahead.
Baltimore is the third city with the highest homicide rate. It's Baltimore, and Washington D.C. is fourth. I mean, is that not significant?
Not the statistics that I saw. In fact, you could also go through. New Orleans, Louisiana, by the way, is number 5. Baltimore and St. Louis is ahead of Baltimore. Memphis is ahead of Baltimore. Jackson, Mississippi is ahead of Baltimore. Those are the 2020. That's the 2024 data.
So are you talking about crime or homicide?
I'm talking about both. Well,
both skews the numbers because one city might be high in murder, but not higher in other crimes. It does matter.
So none of them. So
difference.
even if you were correct, number 1, number 2, and number 3, Donald Trump has not threatened to call in the National Guard. So my opinion still stands.
Well, then still, if Baltimore's the third one, is it not okay simply because he didn't go to the first 2? I mean, at some point you have to start going to certain areas to say we need to take care of this problem because it's really, really bad. I noticed how you kind of danced around saying whether or not Baltimore was actually safe, because I think even you want to admit that it's a really look. I work in Baltimore several times a month. I know how bad it is in areas that I can't go to because it's so dangerous. And I have family in Chicago. These places are really bad. I'm not saying Trump is going to solve it. He honestly probably isn't, but at least he's trying to do something because it's really bad. And it didn't used to be this way.
It didn't used to be. It didn't used to be this way.
Chicago was not this dangerous several decades ago, or even back in 2005. It wasn't this dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
It just simply was not.
So calling
you can come up with a different solution as to say maybe we could fix it this way. I'm open to hearing that, but you can't make the claim that Chicago, Baltimore, Memphis are all safe cities.
Okay, again, your definition of what is safe. I've traveled all over the country. There's plenty of bad neighborhoods.
As have I, and I know how bad these places are.
Okay, I'm sure you do.
Well, I do. I work in transportation. I know how dangerous. You can write it off. You don't have the counter, Brian, but you're not correct.
Well, okay, you're not correct on this. You seem to think that.
How do you figure?
I'm trying to explain it to you, sir.
Sure.
So you've made the case that because you've traveled to cities, and in your opinion, quote, they're not safe, it is a defense for calling in the National Guard, which are, by the way, not even trained to deal with these sorts of crimes. You are making a defense and an excuse for Donald Trump because you claim, since it's the capital, in D.C., that's why he went to.
If you don't
you made the case.
One more quick.
That since it's the capital. Hold on, I'm not done yet.
I'm
not done. You made the case that the defense or the excuse, as I would characterize it, as to why he chose D.C. first is because it's the capital. But yet for 5 hours, when we actually had something where the National Guard should have been called in, called January 6th, he did not call in the National Guard. You claimed he did. There's no evidence that he did. People testified under oath that he didn't, so that's a lie. He sat on his ass for 5 hours and blamed Nancy Pelosi. So if there's an insurrection, he's not going to call in the National Guard when they actually should be called in. But yet, if there's a bunch of homeless
I just have one more point. You said that the National Guard isn't trained for this.
No.
Okay, I'll agree with that. And let's say they're not. Well, even if they're not, my point still stands with how crime has dropped drastically in D.C. with all these guards that haven't been trained. So it goes back to my original question: is that not a significant number? Which, respectfully, you didn't even answer when I asked you at the beginning of the call.
And here's why I say it's completely irrelevant, because you can't call on the National Guard to every dangerous city in this country. Number one, we don't have the resources to do so.
I agree with you on that. Yeah, you can't do it with every city.
And again, most of the people that have been arrested have been arrested for nonviolent crimes, misdemeanors. By the way, you could look this up if you don't believe me. There have been a few, of course, that have serious crimes, but many of those people who have been arrested were out the same day, and they're back on the streets. So no, sir, with all due respect, David, I don't think what you're saying is correct. You could think that I'm wrong until the cows come home, but you don't have a logical reason why he hasn't sent out the National Guard to the most dangerous cities in this country. Your excuse to why he called in the National Guard to D.C., because it's the Capitol. Last I checked, the January 6th insurrection happened at the Capitol. He called the people who beat police officers heroes and patriots, and he pardoned them. So don't you tell me Donald Trump cares about the Capitol and he cares about our safety. That is a lie, and you are making excuses for what is obvious and what is right in front of us. These are 3 black mayors run by Democrats. He wants to own the libs, and I will be shocked if he calls in the National Guard to any city that's run by a Republican. There is your reason why he's doing this, David, so you can make all the excuses you want.